In this module, we will study about the requirements of a good test of selection. But before going into the detail of this thing, first of all we should understand the meaning of selection. Selection is the process of choosing the most suitable person out of all the applicants for a particular job. The most suitable candidate is selected and unsuitable candidates are weeded out. So it is the process of selection. The selection and rejection of the applicant is decided on different types of criteria or stages. One should be very clear about these stages because selection process comprises of various levels or stages the candidate has to pass. If he is able to clear these stages, he would be considered as a right or suitable candidate for the right job, otherwise rejected or an unsuitable candidate. After studying this module, we will be able to learn about the basic meaning and importance of selection, identify the employment test and requirement of a good test of selection, appreciate that there are external factors also affecting good test of selection, identify about the selection policy requirement for a good test of selection. First of all, we start with the definition of selection. According to Dale Yoder, selection is the process of choosing from among the candidates the most suitable person for the current position or for the future position. According to Mondi etc., selection is the process of choosing from a group of applicants the individual best suited for a particular position and organization. Now we move on to the importance of selection. Selection of a right candidate in the organization involves various steps to be performed and involves a huge amount of money and time. It is considered to be an important function of the organization for creating a stable workforce. The different benefits of selection are as follows. It reduces the labor turnover and absenteeism in the organization and thus provides a stable workforce. The next benefit is if right candidates are placed at right job, it increases the productivity in the organization and avoids low wastage and increases efficiency. The next benefit is low accident rates because of suitable employees being placed at the right jobs and thus employees' safety concerns are met. The next benefit is high morale of the employees of the organization. The next benefit of the selection process is that it creates an organizational climate based on cordial interpersonal relationship of the employees. The good selection process helps in developing a suitable workforce in the organization. And last but not the least benefit of selection process is that it enhances job satisfaction of the employees by selecting appropriate candidates on the right job. Now we are going to discuss that how testing can provide good return on investment. Every manager knows the cost of employee turnover is very high. Still, that often had to be balanced against the cost of the test and accompanying services. In the mid-2000s, several factors emerged to make testing a viable option for small businesses. First, tests came back into vogue after losing favor in the 1990s because they were seen as too conformist and insufficiently aware of emerging values like individuality and diversity. The new tests quantify these and other traits that make them more suited to small businesses. Second, The online world exploded. All sorts of testing choices came within easy reach of business owners. Companies such as Hire Success furnish down-labeled software that enables managers to customize and administer tests and send the results to the company for evaluation at fees mostly below $500. Third, a proliferation in online job postings. Even those a company did not advertise, combined with the Great Recession, have flooded businesses with job seekers in recent years. The resulting uptick in equally qualified applicants necessitates more tools for setting them out. Now we are going to understand the meaning of employment test. Employment tests are conducted to match the requirement of the job truly with the prospective candidate. Test assesses the individual's attitude, behavior, and performance related to the job. Test leads to the better matching of candidate and the job by revealing the facts and qualifications mentioned in the form. The following type of tests can be conducted to get the right candidate in the organization. First, intelligence test. Second, aptitude test. Third, occupational or professional test. Fourth, interest test. Fifth, personality test. No test can be foolproof. Care must be taken to design it best without any biases, to be the good indicator of one's knowledge and skills. Also, individual differences can be found with respect to their characteristics, overall personality traits, their physical and mental capacities, their likes and dislikes, etc. So, tests are considered to be the best ways to know the fitness of the person with the job, keeping in mind these traits. Whether an individual is truly capable for a job or not may be assessed with the various type of employment test. The strongest personality assessment to use in a hiring context are ones that possess these attributes. First, measure stable traits that will not tend to change once the candidate has been on the job for some length of time. Are normative in nature, which allows you to compare one candidate's scores against another's to determine which individual possesses more or less of a particular trait. Have a candidness or distortion or lie detector scale so you understand how likely it is that the results accurately portray the test taker. Have high reliability, including test reliability, and have been shown to be valid predictors of job performance. Personality tests are most effective when combined with other measures with higher predictive validity, such as integrity or cognitive ability. Using well-validated, highly predictive assessment tools can give business owners and managers a significant leg up when trying to select candidates who will become top producers for the organization. Now we are going to discuss the benefits of employment test. Following are the benefits of employment test. The very first is a standardized way of finding a right candidate for the right job. The second is gives a better objective criteria for judging the qualities of an individual. Third is that it provides uniformity in test for all the applicants and their marks will help the employer to use them as a selector to see their performance. The fourth helps in measuring an aptitude of candidates and forecast their success. The fifth, possible to know their temperament and other capabilities that help in placing them to the right job, giving them utmost job satisfaction. The next advantage is that it helps in reducing labor turnover and absenteeism also, because if the suitable candidate is not selected for the job, he will leave it sooner or later and may result as a cost to the company. The next benefit of the test is that it helps in reducing cost to the company by conducting these tests, because large number of applicants can be evaluated within the least possible time. Now question arises, what are the requirements of a good test of selection? Employment tests have become an important tool in the selection process. The basic idea behind conducting a test is to eliminate the applicants who are actually having a very little chance of selection. But remember always, tests are the ways to judge a candidate for the required job. It is again followed by interview, reference checks, etc. In order to make a selection process successful, the following requirements must be met as a good test of selection. That first, someone should have the authority to select the right candidate for the right job on the basis of the requisition for employment in the organization. The second is that job analysis must be done prior hand before any selection process takes place. It is because on the basis of job description and job specification, a person can be compared for the present job. The third is that recruitment must be done before any selection process starts in order to get many applicants for the job, out of which best and suitable candidates must be selected for the proposed job. The next content is that best selection model is one which is legitimate and has strong criteria for selection. The next is that the test chosen for selection purposes must be fair and has some objective for which to measure, irrespective of the people conducting it and the circumstances surrounding it. The next feature of the test should be that selection tests should be standardized based on sound norms, reliable and valid. The next point is that standardization should involve uniformity of the procedure and conditions used for selection. It should follow the norms that provide a frame of reference for comparison with others. It should consist of reliability measures so that consistency can be maintained in results. It should be valid so that the extent of the test should be measured, and it should be concluded that what is the purpose behind the test. The next is that test must aim at reducing cost of the company in terms of selection and placement of the employees by eliminating unwanted persons through test only. The purpose of test should be to develop hidden talents through employment test. It also helps in getting competency information about a person. The capacity of a person to do a job or not to do a job can also be judged easily. Certain tests help to know the knowledge and proficiency level of the candidate for the job. The tests also make a balance between the individual personality, and this balance should be analyzed through various tests such as emotional balance, maturity level, etc. Tests should help in reducing the cost of hiring the people. Tests must be validated for the jobs they are to be used for. Tests must be in accordance with the need of the job. Tests affect the performance and profitability of the organization also, because hiring of people involves a huge cost, and test can provide a systematic and accurate way to find the people who are most suitable for the job. Moving further, now let us study the external factor requirements for good test of selection. Factors related to external environment affecting selection process must also be considered. Before initiating selection process, the following prerequisites must also be considered. First is legal considerations. External environment is affected by legal factors imposed by the government before any selection process starts. These factors must be considered for hiring managers and other employees for the organization. Non-compliance of any law and its rules can drag any organization into any complication and penalties. The second feature is time. Time is a very important factor in taking decisions as to selection and should not be ignored. Delays in planning related to human resources, recruitment procedures may often lead to problems. The third factor that should be taken care of is policies and procedures. Selection policies and procedures have to be laid down in the organization. It involves a long time and management has to be proactive in order to gain benefits closely. Then we have to take care of organizational hierarchy. There are different levels in the organization like top, middle and lower level. And for these different levels, different approaches to selection are generated at different levels in the organization. Then one should also take care of the number of candidates. The number of applicants for a particular job can also affect the selection process. The process can be truly selective only if there are several qualified persons for a particular position. The number of people hired for a particular job compared to the individuals in the applicant pool is often expressed as selection ratio. Then we have to take care of the type of the organization. The type of the selection process and its requirements to be met also depends upon the sector, whether it is private sector or a public sector. Then we have to be very careful about the probationary period. Many firms use a probationary period that an employee has to pass through based on his performance. This may be either a substitute for certain phases of the selection process or a check on the validity of the process. Then we have socio-economic factors affecting the selection process. Socio-economic factors and technological factors must also be considered for having a selection procedure. Since technology has replaced the human resources in the organization, the selection criteria have to be very accurate. Now let us discuss the selection policy requirements for a good test of selection. Before any selection can be made in the organizations, policies are created. A selection policy is a statement of principles outlining how an organization will conduct its selection process. Policies are formulated in the organizations to have transparent and unbiased selection in the organizations. It leads to internal control. The reasons for having such policies is to ensure that right candidates must be selected on the basis of criteria determined for every job based upon job descriptions, and that must be lawful. Written policies developed on the basis of needs of the company create a structure that helps in dealing with day-to-day problems of the organization. The selection policy shall include those tests that are most desirous appointments in the organization who can contribute positively. To remove any biases in selection, consistent key selection criteria must be clearly mentioned in the organization and in advertisement. Consistency is to make a decision which is fair. But in case of, for example, physically handicapped candidates, fair decision is one when they are given an opportunity to be heard fully and present their case. A good test of selection must take into consideration all the factors related to job, job description, job specification, and categories of personnel. The next factor is that a good test of selection should not discriminate with any candidate on any basis such as caste, age, gender, religion, nationality, etc. The important feature is that a good test of selection should be transparent and must notify them about selection procedure and their selection or no selection. Now we make a summary of whatever we have discussed so far. Selection is the process of choosing the most suitable persons out of all the applicants for a particular job. The selection and rejection of an applicant is decided on the basis of various criteria or stages one has been able to clear, because selection process comprises of various level of stages a candidate has to pass. Selection process helps in reducing the labor turnover and absenteeism in the organization and thus provides a stable workforce. If a right candidate is placed at a right job, it helps in increasing the productivity in the organization and wastage can be avoided and efficiency can be maximized. Care must be taken to design it best without any biases to be the good indicator of one's knowledge and skills. The process of standardization involves uniformity in the procedures and conditions used for selection. Fair norms should be adopted to provide a frame of reference for comparison with that of others. Reliable measures should be used so that consistency can be maintained in different tests of selection. Test, if has low reliability, its validity is affected, and hence whenever designing the test, its reliability should be emphasized. To validate reliability, a test must be verified. Validity is the extent to which a test measures what it wants to measure. External factors requirement for good test of selection includes legal considerations, time, policies and procedures, organizational hierarchy, applicants pool, type of the organization, probation period, and socio-economic factors. Policies should be formulated in the organization to have transparent and unbiased selection in the organization. It leads to internal control. The benefits of employment test are standardized form of finding a right candidate for the right job. They give a better objective criteria for judging the qualities of an individual, provides uniformity in test for all applicants, and their marks will help the employer to use them as a selector to see their performance. Test helps in measuring an aptitude of candidate and forecast their success. Selection policy requirement for good test of selection includes those tests that contribute positively, involves consistent key selection criteria, they should be free from biases and discrimination and should be transparent. Recruitment is a positive process because it invites the persons to apply for the job. It gives motivation to the applicants. Selection is a negative process because it selects the persons. It aims at finding out the right or suitable candidates out of those recruited by eliminating the unsuitable candidates. Right selection of the candidate reduces the labor turnover and absenteeism in the organization, and it provides a stable workforce. At every stage, there is an elimination of unsuitable candidates, and these stages are actually created to eliminate the unqualified candidates at any point in the selection process. In preliminary interview stage, interaction of a candidate is there with the organization for the first time. This step is a kind of initial screening. It is followed by taking the test. Tests are conducted to match the requirement of the job truly with the prospective candidate. Various types of tests can be conducted to get the right candidates. For example, intelligence test, aptitude test, occupational or professional test, interest test, and personality test. Tests are followed by interview. Interview is an essential face-to-face interaction between the employer and the candidate. Interviews are of different types like structured interview, unstructured interview, planned interview, group interview. While taking the interview, there should not be any kind of biasness, or uniform policies should be maintained for all the prospecting candidates. After finishing the interviews, the candidates are asked for reference checks. Reference checks means that a candidate is required to give the name and address of the 2 or 3 persons who know him well. These may be their previous employers, heads of educational institutions, or a public figure. The selection process helps in getting the organization the best candidates for the jobs. Through selection process, the candidates involve themselves in the job and they get motivated with the internal organization working standards. So, while drafting the selection procedure, the proper care should be taken of the sentiments, the beliefs, the policies, procedures of the candidates as well. The job requirements, the job specification and job description within the organization.